Hey there, friends. This is Sarah Mastriani-Levi. I'm here with another healing conversation. As we were kind of just briefly discussing, what should we talk about today? And, everything is just kind of upside down in the world on so many levels. And as I often do, I pulled cards, and the card that came up was calmness. And I just really love these cards. They're very beautiful cards. And the word that I had been sitting with was offering. So I went to this deck of the Wild Offering Oracle and pulled just who would like to show up and talk to us and give us some information about what we should go deeper into. And as William and I were discussing, we really felt that bringing the gift of your calmness is a very powerful point to show up, especially in this time of just complete uncertainty. So I'd like to invite William to join me.
Hello.
Hello, your radiophonic voice.
I don't know where that came from.
It's working, right? It was your calm radiophonic voice. So what within calmness is the biggest pull for you right now to jump in?
I think the biggest thing in my calmness that it is, I don't want to say I've been fighting it, because sometimes I have been accused of being too calm. There's so much happening around me, and there's so much things that should get my attention or need my passion and all that other kind of stuff. And my desire to be calm, to be clear-headed, to be sober, to really basically be at a base set, so then I can get into action. Sometimes there's a question that if you're not calm, right? if I'm not calm, I'm engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I want to say I don't think that's the truth, but I mean, it's like there is definitely that fight. And so I don't value that gift
Mm-hmm.
of being calm because of how it shows up for other people.
And how does it make them feel when you're calm? Is there times that it has differing effects?
Right. I think there's a lot of, I've listened to some people say, oh, you have a calming voice, and, you have a calming presence and that kind of things. But I don't want to say, but it just feels like people appreciate the calmness until they don't. And then
what's the turning point for them?
It's I think I guess the crazier things that are outside, the less calm that is acceptable. I mean, it feels like there is this sense, it's not the calm before the storm or the calm within the storm. For people, it is, okay, it's raining, I need to do raining activities, right? Mm-hmm. I need to, there has to be that type of thing. And I think for myself that, I think I mentioned to you before that that too, am I being too calm, right? Mm-hmm. Is there, is it too much right now? Is this, has my calmness turned into me being delusional? That, are denying that, right? That this passive denying of the reality, mm-hmm. because too often it feels like I said, people feel like, this is the reality, and there's chaos, so I have to be within the chaos. You have to be bouncing.
If I understood you correctly,
Right.
with what we'll call the systemic anger or frustration or
Right.
dis-ease, your calmness in the face of that shows up as an affront when it pushes on people's buttons that are saying, in order to actually care, you need to get angry about this.
Right. It feels that way. I mean, I've said to people within my consulting, it hasn't really come up in my coaching, but in my consulting, I would use the example that I am not a fireman. I I do not work well when your hair's on fire and you want me to come in and just put your fire out. Doesn't, because my um, default or inclination is to ask, how did this start? When did this happen? And all that other kind of stuff. And it's very hard to have those. I recognize that it's
Mm-hmm.
very hard to have those conversations when somebody's hair's on fire, right?
Right, right.
When there's fire going. And I totally get it and understand that. And so I try to not to be the only source of help or relief in a situation.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I devalue the other parts of me, because yes, I can be a fireman, I can do that, but I don't believe that that's my strength. So me being calm and me being sober and present to it in a way that I am thinking about it are kind of, I don't know why scheming came up, but devising a plan of attack. So not only will we put it out, but this will never happen again. Type of thing.
Okay.
That's
Getting to the
that's
root of it.
right. That's what
Mm-hmm.
that's the calmness gift for me. That it's like, you know what? I don't want to deal with this again, right? And I don't want you to deal with this again. So we're gonna take the time and do all that other kind of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, and I think too often it feels like a lot of many people that I encounter feel like they do not want to get to the root. They just want relief.
Mm-hmm. So relief. I was thinking about, there are a lot of people that are kind of feeling that the way they're getting their relief, ironically, is not putting out the fire, but
Mm.
spreading the fire so other people will open their eyes that there's a fire. And
Wow.
this fire has been going. Why aren't you upset about this fire?
Right. And then they'll light you on fire.
Sometimes I'm trying to see the gift in both aspects, right? Because
Right.
if I'm on one side of the city, I don't know what's going on in the other side of the city sometimes.
Right.
And so if I see there's smoke, suddenly there's a lot of smoke, my attention is going to be drawn to it. And I think that the media all too often feeds off of, oh, here's another fire and here's another fire. And I mean, the media is never going to really report to you about sweet puppy dogs and how you sat quietly in your garden, because that's not, people don't get excited about that. So your gift of calmness is never going to be exciting.
Hmm.
But it is going to be the thing that, I mean, there's calmness that I can help you put the fire out and be calm about it.
Right.
And there's the calmness that you're talking about also that's like, okay, now we're going to dig deeper. What caused this? I don't want it to happen. But I also see like value in, if this happens again, I have this experience that no longer makes it completely unknown, and I can show up calmer than somebody might on the first experience.
Right.
Like a secondary experience of a fire is, you know what to do a little bit more. It might be a different fire in a different location, but here's how we function. And I think that's where we get to use wisdom, the wisdom of experience, to help us
Right.
approach things differently, that we don't have to panic. Oh, we did, up until this point, we have 100% survival rate. As ironic as that may seem, with a lot of the things that many of us have gone through. But our survival rate and our calmness, it might not be exciting, but it will make us dependable and will give us that wisdom.
It's very interesting that even with a 100% survival rate, we still allow chaos to kind of dictate our reaction. It's not, and the fear of the chaos and the excitement and the craziness and all of that. We forget that on the other side of chaos is calm, is order,
Mm-hmm.
is all the things that we want. But sometimes I guess I'll speak for myself. I act as if this chaos is going to persist, forever. If I don't, attack it, do something like that, it is there. There is really no relief on the other side of this. There has been situations where I have felt that my awareness and my response to it prolonged it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, shit, if I would have not just said anything, I would have
Mm-hmm.
probably just,
Maybe there are situations.
Oh, absolutely. It's not, like I
Right.
said, it's not a blanket thing, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think for me, there have been too many where my response spread fire versus putting it in. I don't know why fire is coming up today. Maybe that's
I think that fire, in so many ways, is, you think of someone who's cool and collected, and
right,
fire is drama.
right,
Fire is chaos. So in that way, I feel like that's a good analogy. I do feel that there are absolutely times that we have to step in
right.
and act fast.
Hmm.
I mean, an EMT can tell you that better than anyone else. When you have a bleed out, a surgeon, when you have a bleed out, you have to stop the bleeding.
Right.
Like we can
That's the
pump
first thing. Right.
in blood transfusions as much as we want, but we have to stop the bleeding.
Right.
And there's kind of like an order of operations. And there are people who can still function really well, very calmly in emergency situations.
Right.
But there are also a lot of people that thrive on that chaos and almost are pulled to it. In my experience, the people who thrive on chaos come from histories of addictive behavior. Because addictions are emotions not expressed,
Right.
that are covered, not seen, not heard, not felt. They're covered with actions. And the moment we start to slow down and get calm enough to actually see, feel, or hear things, that would mean we'd have to be vulnerable. So, opa, here's my addiction again, creating chaos. And addiction can show up in lots of forms. There's a lot of behavioral addictions that show up that are not necessarily substance related. There are even, what would be considered healthy addictions that are other levels of not feeling. You can have like an over exercising addiction, but it's how you numb out to not feel. So, really kind of just seeing where calmness usually stems from being able to be safe to express emotions and to be able to show up fully and know that no matter how you show up, even with those emotions, you said, like something will continue to escalate. But even a fire, even a bleed out, at some point, you'll either have a stoppage of that bleed out,
Right.
or someone will bleed out and die, right? You're not going to stay at that peak the entire time. That's not a viable response for long
Right.
term. Chaos is not sustainable. And
Right.
every time we create a situation where we are perpetuating chaos, we are in a position that we are not honoring the emotions, and we're not honoring the fact that this can heal and change, the safety of that.
There is there's something that was coming up for me, and was actually kind of difficult to, and I felt that I was questioning if it was true that a lot of what I call being calm or calmness in my life is really um, avoidance. Right?
Yeah, that's another form of addiction, right? Like,
Right.
mhm.
It is. So it is. I am going to. The image of la la la. This is not happening. Denial, all that other kind of stuff. But um, there's this sense that I don't have to deal with this right now, and I choose not to deal with this right now. And it's not about it. And so, it caused me to have the question is, can I or do I have any control of calmness? Do you understand what I mean? Calmness just comes over you like the conversation
Mhm.
is a gift
Right.
that I just step into versus something that I manufacture or I kind of
We
create.
can get into the science of this for a second, the
Okay.
science of calmness.
Okay.
So we have a nervous system, right? I think we can all agree that is rooted in our brain and our spinal column, and it kind of splits at one point. Part of it is called the sympathetic nervous system, and that is the fight or flight or freeze. Silence and calmness could be a part of the freeze as well. Notice that, how that could be in the state of chaos. But our heart, all of the, it's, our blood flow, all of our nervous reactions are tuned into our vital organs at that time. We're breathing fast, we're breathing superficial, we're just moving. We're not in the rest and digest stage. We got to get out of here. It's chaos. Then we have another nervous system that is parallel and goes a little bit further down and reaches down into a lot of the organs that are a part of the rest and the digest. Because, it makes sense that you need to have two systems. If you've got to move fast, you don't want your body being like, oh, hold up a minute, I need to digest a little bit more of your lunch before we can actually run away from the robber. Like,
Right.
that's not a really great function. So we
Right.
have this beautiful system that is, running away from the mammoth or whatever it was traditionally. But now we live in such a state where we're not breathing, that we're actually functioning in that sympathetic nervous system a lot of the time.
Right.
Really high heart rate, not calming our minds, not calming our breath. Whereas if we switch into the parasympathetic nervous system, that's the kickback, like, okay, now we can process. Now we can actually look at what the root of the fire was. If you're pretending like you can, during the fight or flight, look at the root of it, that's an avoidance behavior. Right? Like, if I'm in the middle of a fire and I'm like not acting to save this person or to get myself safe, and or if I'm just freezing and saying, okay, whatever, that the fire has to be put out.
Right.
Those are all sympathetic responses. Only in the parasympathetic can we rest, digest, and process in our brains how to solve things on a larger, long-term scale. And the way we shift, it's really a very simple procedure. You've probably heard it discussed before, is just that square breathing of inhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, and then do that 3 or 4 times. Automatically your heart rate goes down. Your breathing is allowed to go down into your deep diaphragmatic belly breaths. And then you can kind of sit for a minute and be like, whoa, that was really freaking scary.
Right.
You can actually see it as a witness of, and not as an active player. You can separate yourself from it only in that nervous state, or nervous system state is what I'm trying to say.
Got it.
So the calmness only really shows up there. So, I think that that's really important to realize when you said, am I distancing myself in order to not feel things? I think that there is definitely something that drops in where if you're in the emergency situation and you're not actively doing something to help, then you're probably in denial that you're as calm as you are.
Right. And I think the one thing that I heard, either if you're not helping someone get safe or getting yourself safe, you're in denial.
Mm-hmm.
So
in an emergency situation.
Emergency situation, right?
I mean, there is the freeze thing, and the freezing thing to me is where you're silent, you're standing, mouth agape, you can't move. But if I'm calling that calmness,
right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, it's kind of interesting in my I guess in my therapy of healing my body and getting healthy. I am pleasantly surprised, let's just say that, of the amount of breathing that's a part of it.
Breath work is so critical.
And the placement of the different types of breathing and how, and, to have, my doctor say that, hey, this work is important. So I need you to, I need you to practice this. I need you to, try this and kind of do this. Cause it's like I am very surprised, and I think I've mentioned this a number of times, that anytime that I try something new or something that I'm curious about, there is this the instructor or the person of authority has to remind me to breathe. And it's just like I don't know if I've moved it so far in my head that it's like, okay,
it's an emergency situation. It's new.
Everything that you've been tasked to do, don't do that. Just focus on what we're trying to do. Focus on yoga right now and then all that other kind of stuff. And it's like, dude, breathe. It's like,
right. But keep in mind that hard is just something that we don't know what to do. The first day of school is hard only because we don't know what to do. Nothing is going to be hard when we know what to do because we know how to deal with it. So for you, whether it's yoga, it's just hard because what do I have to do to fit in? How do I have to be to follow instructions? Like by the time you know your teacher's voice and you know the flow of the asana, it's not hard. It's easier to breathe. It's normal. It's a normal human reaction when you try something new to be afraid or confused about how to deal with it. It's a totally normal. Hard is what we don't know.
Right. Now, what is the so our access to calmness? Is it a part of our knowing?
So this is where breath work comes in, right? Because if we practice it on the regular, the quicker we can shift into that with a matter of like within 1 minute, you can shift from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic by doing that breathing pattern that I discussed before. But we so often don't know how to take ourselves out of like this hard new situation. And instead of running to like, I always mess up new beginnings, or some sort of story like, I never get it right. Whatever my mind chatter is usually where I'm going to go to. But honestly, if we're able to be in the class and be like, yo, this is hard. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
And it's not like a hard cardio class where you have to be with your heart rate up.
Right.
But if there's a way to just be present and go into your stillness and do 1 minute of that breathing, your approach to how hard it is will
Right.
generally shift pretty quickly.
I get it. And I think now it's like I'm adopting the gift of my calmness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it allows me to show up and be available, right?
Yeah.
It's just I don't know. It's like I don't know. It's kind of funny because it's like a friend. It's like a good friend.
Mm-hmm.
Wingman, right? Calmness is my wingman.
That's right. That's right.
It's like
I like this story, and I'll probably get it not exactly right, but I generally this is how I roll. That I misquote the exact quote, but I get the general idea very
okay,
well. So there's this Mr. Rogers story where there's like an emergency situation, and there's all these emergency vehicles coming in, and his mom tells him to look for the helpers, that there are always helpers, and to be able to be calm, that even when it's just you and a situation, to know that even on the other side, we have helpers that are showing up. There are those that we can visually see, and there are those that are just the plant helpers, the spirit guides, and other things that are probably considered woo woo to a lot of people. But the more you
right.
become aware of some greater presence of spirit around you, you realize even in your difficult moments alone, you are still supported. Look for the helpers.
Hmm.
And the easiest way to find them is through your breath.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah. I think I think the biggest challenge that we have in our society today is, um, I guess for myself, I'll speak for myself. It's like every time I try to speak for other people, I just kind of catch myself. So the biggest challenge that I have today is that um, my inconsistency of asking for help
Mm-hmm.
and identifying the helper
Hmm.
who can help. And so in the look for the helper, it's like, I don't know what I'm looking for, right? I
Yeah.
don't I don't know. There's been so many people in situations where I felt that, help was, available when it wasn't, or it's not,
Hmm.
or it's put in question.
There are certainly people who will fail us, right? When
Mm.
we so often, this is such a difficult life lesson, that the people that we would expect to behave as we would behave, that's where our disillusionment first shows up. Like,
Mhm.
why aren't you helping me the way that I would be helping you if it was this situation? So we've
Right.
already cast our expectation on them. But also in the spirit realm, I can remember talking with very spiritual friends and saying, I just don't know what to do about this. Here's the situation. It's really confusing. And they'd just look at me and be like, well, what do your spirit guides say? And I'd be like, like,
Right.
don't know. Like, I'm not seeing them. I'm not hearing them. I'm confused. And a lot of the ways that you start to connect to that is looking at the serendipitous nature of what is being supported around you.
Mm.
Oftentimes, for me, I'm a very communication oriented person.
Mhm.
So when I hear words repeated, that for me is a serendipitous hint from the other side. When I hear from 4 or 5 people just randomly a word in a conversation, or
Right.
a term, I'm like, oh, okay, pay attention here.
Hmm.
It's interesting how it shows up, but those confirmations, and so often messages come through people that are seemingly disconnected to everything else that's going on.
Right.
Just some dude at the gas station who's like, is your machine working? My machine's not working thing. And then says something randomly, and you're like, oh, that did, that wormhole did kind of like go into my brain as another communicator.
Right.
Thank you.
I think the um, um, I guess the question that I have with that is my inability sometimes to recognize those signs. I mean, because I get things like that most of the times when I get signs like that with someone, someone random will say something. It's like, hey, wait a minute, I was just talking about that. So it's totally different than how social media shows up. You're talking about buying something and then you get a Facebook ad. It's like, okay, that's not serendipitous. Somebody's like
No.
listening to me, right?
Right, right.
My phone is listening to me.
Mm-hmm.
But when there's these random things, your thoughts, your prayers, you're within your meditation, and the randomness feeling, like there's a randomness to it, and it shows up, instead of saying, hey, this is something I need to listen to, too often it's like, that's freaky, right? And there's, I don't want to say there's like this dismissiveness of it, but it's like there's awareness, and then there's like, I guess again, it is coming up. Denial, right? This is not happening right now. Because I can remember sometimes when those moments have come up that I have said those things. Yeah, this is not this.
Yeah, this has been a coping strategy. I mean, this is
Right.
part
Wow.
of your 100% survival rate until now, right? Because
Right. Wow.
then you don't have to step into the chaos. Then you don't have to be in danger. Those are survival methods, and you're not alone on that one at
Right.
all, right? Like so many people I encountered, probably myself included at times, denial of how serious something is or how serendipitous something is. So,
Yeah, I think really embracing the gift of, or the gifts that come to us, and that, and calmness is just one of those gifts.
mm-hmm.
And really, I guess what's coming up for me is accepting that gift.
Cultivating that gift.
Cultivating. Oh, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm. It's something that some of us have been born. Some people are born with it. That calmness, that ability to just distance themselves a little bit from things and be able to just take a calmer approach. And there's a lot of us that really have to continue to cultivate it because, it's one thing if I live in my bubble. It's really easy to stay calm if I don't allow anything else. But the moment that I interact with the world, I have to have a tool and oftentimes I find with the media, it's a deflector tool. It's setting a very clear boundary. Like, I will not allow you have to have something to report, right? Media people. So you perpetuate stories like all these headlines, below headlines running, and like 3 screens and 4 people talking. It's just gotten so much. This is, when we were younger, what was it like? Dan Rather, Walter Cronkite. I don't even remember his name. Like one person, one screen, here's the news. And granted, it was very one-sided, but now we've got all of this stuff running.
Right.
And like, whoa. Turn it off.
Right.
Just turn it off.
How can it's like it's not even, I want to say, doing anything to contribute to the calmness. I say kindness, but it's like you were saying, before, that the media doesn't show the the puppies, the heartfelt stories, all that other kind of stuff, and it's like, even if I think I've done a couple blogs, around Christmas time, where they do what were they called? Human interest stories, right? And so around the holidays, you have all these touchy-feely human interest stories, and it's like,
how scientific is that?
Yeah, it's like, so no other time in the year human interest stories are,
What a term, though.
I know, isn't that crazy? It's just really, um, and I love how you said cultivate. It's like once I receive the gift, then there's, I don't say responsibility, or maybe that's the right word. And then because of that responsibility of that gift, then I can cultivate it. I can learn from it. I can strengthen it. I can do all of the things now that I have it, instead of just, you know, putting on my calmness hat and it's like, okay, now I'm calm, right? Right. And just put it off, later.
It's a
Um,
practice that you work with in your meditation, in your quiet time, in your personal time. I think that nighttime is a huge time for cultivating calmness. I mean, there are people who can just hit the pillow and they sleep straight and they sleep hard for 8, 10, and 12 hours. Like, I don't, I don't know that in my own body, right?
right. It's
And there definitely have been times in my life where I've been very insomniac, where I just don't sleep like for long, or I sleep and then wake up. And for me, one of the bigger gifts is when I can't sleep, is to just go into some breath work,
right.
just be in my body. What are you trying to tell me right now? Why are we not resting?
Right. There is, I mentioned earlier that a number of people, I don't know which one is more a measured equation, have said that I have a calming voice.
Oh yeah.
And 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 sometimes I try to kind of see, okay, well, why do I speak this way? What is this, what this about me? And I think really anytime that my voice isn't this way, isn't this, what I'd say, measured, or something,
Mm-hmm.
appropriate, or all that other kind of stuff, um, it feels like I'm not being my authentic self. It's just really weird. Even when I raise my voice for a good reason, it
Mm-hmm.
feels like I am trying to be something else other than myself, because I believe, for me, and that's why it's been my struggle of understanding, am I avoiding, or if this is just a place of calmness that I have, that I'm able to
Maybe this is something that
bring
you've
to
cultivated.
right.
Yeah.
And it's, so it feels, like I said, it feels, anytime I am not this way, or show up in this in my speaking,
Mm-hmm.
it just, like I said, it just doesn't feel authentic. And so I'm just trying to, I went from, not speaking as much, having thoughts, and just kind of letting the thoughts kind of wrap around and kind of do what they do inside my head, and all that other kind of stuff. But then when I started speaking, there was this calmness to my speaking, that it feels like sometimes people listen to, and sometimes they don't, right? But I guess
Mm.
that's, such as life. Um, but like I said, I was just, thinking that, is calmness, or calm, has it been so much a part of my life that I cultivated it to a level that now I don't know where, I began and that the gift ends, type of thing. Is that, and
I mean,
is
it's a beautiful integration, right?
right.
I generally find myself in pretty calm state as well. I mean, my kids will attest to the fact that I know how to shout very well when necessary. Not that it's always effective, as you know, living with teenagers.
Right.
Um, but when I've had like a shouting, I saw this a lot when I lived abroad, specifically in Israel, that whoever shouts the loudest is right.
Wow.
And so often, even in just friendly conversations, I can remember my parents coming to Israel the first time and they were like, They were arguing the whole meal. I was like, no, Mom, that's just them talking. Whoever talks the loudest is right. Like, and I know a lot of Israelis would be like, no, that's not exactly true. And there's definitely a subsector that's not a part of the way it is. But there's a lot of just angst that is always being expressed there. There's a lot of captive internal fire that is explosive there that I encountered. And, you know, for me, when I have to raise my voice, it's one thing when I initiate it, like, go clean up your room now, like really getting firm about it.
Right.
But it's something else when somebody attacks me, and in order to meet their energy where they are, I have to jump out of my calm and get in a dialogue. And can I pull them down to my calmness and still get the same efficacy without jumping into this, like, I'm not going to do this shouting match with you in order for you to be right.
Right.
Can we calm down? Can we talk about this different? For me, if I get into a shouting match with something that I haven't kind of initiated it, and it's not, I'm talking about a shouting match that's not just go clean your room kind of.
Right.
For me, that will take me out for like a good week until I can actually feel like I can rest. And like, it really takes me out of my body and out of my spirit because it just feels so out of alignment for me.
Right. It's, you know, and I totally get it. There's a number of times where I have been accused of not, quote unquote, fighting fair, because there is very, there have been few times where someone's energy has raised my energy to a level to match theirs, to kind of feel like the dominance. There has most of the times there is this point that I do my best when I'm at this level of energy. So I am going to sternly invite you, you know, to, it's not just calm down. It is, okay, there's a number of things that I can't hear right now because of the yelling or whatever is coming down. Let's kind of bring this to a level that that we can have a conversation with this. And, you know, sometimes that works, and sometimes it's like, no, the only way that I can get this out is by yelling and all that other kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, put it in your journal and get back with me. I don't, I'm not entertaining this.
And where can we allow people to, if that is how they need to dispense that much energy that is trapped inside their body,
right?
How can we allow that to be dispensed, be in that presence, and not be a receiver of it?
Right.
Like, how can I hear you fully? How can I look at you and be calm?
Right.
And still fully see you and fully communicate with you. One of the stranger things that I've learned that sometimes works is to start whispering. Because if everybody's, then you start talking really quiet. And they're like, what are you talking under your breath? It's not like that like I'm hiding it, but just like very low. Then they have to quiet down to meet.
Right.
And like, okay, I'm hearing you, acknowledging their pain, but like, whew, this is my boundary. You don't get to pour that all on me.
Yeah.
I am not responsible for your bad day at work.
Right.
And you can shout and be angry at it, but I am not going to be your consistent receiving pond for all of the spew of what you do not like from your job. At some point, I'm either going to say, don't talk to me about this anymore, or, do something about it. Here's some ideas that we can do something that, and there's definitely a place like that ability to listen, right? Is to be able to hold it. But when it starts to, it's one thing if I sign up as a coach to hear what people are saying. It's another thing. Hey, would you like feedback around that? Or do you want me to just listen? But if that becomes an everyday thing with a partner, and you're listening to that and you're like, okay, I've listened now for an entire week about this because you didn't want any feedback. Now I'm talking, I'm
Right.
speaking, and I'm saying that this is heavy on me. I don't want to carry this. You either need to find a new place to dump this or find a solution. I can offer you a few of my ideas, or
Right.
you need to go find them. But you dumping on me is like, this is my boundary.
Right.
This is making me feel like shit. And I don't want to come and be at home and feel like this all the time.
Yeah. It's like reclaiming your calmness, right?
Your
It's
sovereignty in your
right.
calmness.
Right. Wow. Yeah. And I think that, a conversation that we've had before about worthiness, there has been sometimes when I feel that maybe because of the situation or the person, that I'm not worthy to ask for, for calmness, right? There's like, well, who am I to kind of demand that this is how this is going to engage? It's kind of interesting that sometimes it shows up that way, and it's huh.
Sometimes for our own calmness, we have to put that boundary that, hey, I still want to be connected to you. I still want to be your friend. I still want to hear what's going on in your life. But maybe we can only, like, I only respond when you text me.
Right.
As opposed to shouting in my ear, because something just is way heavier when it hits me that way than when I just read it. I can respond or not respond and just kind of put it down. But a lot of it is boundary setting. And I find that so often that boundary setting is pretty easy with people we don't know.
Right.
the boundary setting, like what's the saying, that boundaries are only, people only get mad when you set boundaries because they were pushing up against them to begin with.
Right.
So that boundary setting with, with a parent, with a child, with a partner, a close friend, that's when it's like, is this going to fall apart? Or is this going to, okay, right now I can't deal with your shouting. I want to be a part of this. In order for me to maintain my calmness, I'm just going to text with you about it. And then when we get calmer, we can talk about it again.
Right.
And text is also a brilliant way to misunderstand each other. But
absolutely. But sometimes
that's got to be the boundary.
Right. It creates a level of sanity. I've said a number of times that if someone is consistently pushing your buttons, they're not your buttons. Right? They are no longer your buttons, right? Because you've given them to them, right? And you just and there's not if you don't have that level of boundaries, right? If you don't establish that, then I don't think you can maintain your calmness, right? Because you have no idea where, in some cases where it's coming from.
Yeah. Lots of things to think about.
Yeah. What I'm getting from this, and what I want to leave everybody with, is that I guess that I have a say. And I love how you said that in those moments of emergency, if I'm not helping or basically getting myself to safety, or helping someone get to safety, or to do that, I'm in denial.
But if you've frozen and you can't move, then somebody needs to be helping you move from that situation. But if you're in that situation and you're like,
and I'm just
a calm presence here,
right?
There's some level of denial of like,
right,
this is not quite like scientifically in your body. You cannot be fully present and be fully calm in this moment. And it just doesn't work in that kind of an emergency scenario.
Right.
There's a big difference between being calm and being pragmatic. And I think that very often those are confused because, I do well in emergency situations. Like if I think a lot of parents will be able to say this, something goes down, and not that I'm inviting anymore, thank you very much. But when something goes down, okay, what's the first thing we need to do? The next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And whether you're a waitress or you're a surgeon, the demographic, it doesn't really matter. The pragmatic nature is what is most urgent, what is second, what is third, and just move, and just get everything to a safe spot. Right. Then we can go into calmness. But there's a huge difference between being pragmatic and being calm.
It just reminded me of something, and it's kind of funny. I've never hardly told this story, but when I think it was like my first or second year of college, I can't remember. I worked at a summer camp for what's it called? It's for mentally impaired people. I don't know what they call it. It was like ARC or something. So people, they were on the scale of autism and different things. So, so it was a summer camp. I was a counselor, and the one person, Jeffrey, that I was. It's kind of a Rain Man situation in a sense that he was aware of me and not aware of me at the same time. Mm-hmm. And so, but the more that I was there was this calming that he was. And one day he was kind of like was busying himself, and he wanted to go to the pool, and it was like, okay, this is not good because I am not a swimmer, or I'm not a strong swimmer. And it's just like, yeah, this is, I wanted to kind of honor that and kind of say, yeah, we're going to do something else other than this. Well, he made this mad dash towards the pool and was in the pool. And very calmly, I got him out. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have to go in. And if you ask me the details of how I got in, how I got him out, and all, and kind of kept on with my day, and something, the director was like, you saved his life and all that kind of stuff. And for me, I was like, it wasn't that scary. It was it's like there was a part of me that was like, he wasn't in danger right now. It was just, I just needed to get him out of the pool, right? Mm-hmm. Type of thing. The more that I kept this situation calm, the more that I was able to be in it and just kind of have things happen. Yeah. And the reason why it came up is because I don't know what would have happened if I would have panicked because I couldn't swim and all the other things that I didn't have present. Right. The gift that I had of calmness got me through that moment, and it just really. It just reminded me that there, like I said, there are some times that I feel like I am quote unquote too calm or don't really care about the emergency that's happening there, but that's really not the case at all.
No, I think that there definitely, you did a really beautiful job of explaining that you can, but here, you were saying either you're helping someone or you're saving yourself. In this case, you were helping someone. You were helping someone, and that's where the calmness did come in. It wasn't that you were just standing there I'm calmly watching Jeffrey in the pool. Right. He doesn't know how to swim. I don't you were in the saving role, but you were pragmatic and calm
okay.
in an emergency situation. You knew that you had to do whatever you had to get him out of the pool, and you created a plan. And it doesn't even matter what the plan was, but that you were able in that moment to do what was necessary is what was paramount. So you had the gift of both pragmatic and calmness in an emergency situation. So it's really beautiful way of understanding that we cultivate the calm in our parasympathetic when we're resting, so that we'll be able to bring it to the situations where we are helpful in those emergency situations, the fight or flight situations. And everything that has to do with being calm can just be an additive to our pragmatic nature of dealing with something with a plan. But solving is not like, oh, there's an accident, I'm just going to stand. I'm not solving anything.
Right.
I'm in the way.
Wow. Oh, this has been great. It's like I'm calm. I think, and it's kind of funny because the gift back, is the breath, and it's just there's this feeling that after sharing that and just kind of and what you shared, the only thing that I in response was a breath, to take a breath.
Why breath work is so important, as much as calming our minds with meditation. Breath work for our bodies to keep us in the flow. I mean, we could do a whole program on breath work about how it gets trapped in our body and how trauma gets trapped in our body and different things. But
that's why I said it's now it's like, okay, the healing power of breathing, next week on Healing Conversations.
Yes.
But and then we'll wait and see what the card says. And the card says, hey, this is what
we don't have to do by the cards, but so often
I know,
it's interesting how relevant they are.
Absolutely. So it'll be just wonderful, serendipitous, and all those other things. If next week you pull a breathing card, which it's like, is this what we call testing the universe? Right? It's like, okay,
we don't do that.
We don't do that, right?
You don't want the ramifications of what a test looks like. Yeah. We flow with what comes.
We flow with what comes. I received that. I guess, like I said, sometimes that's the shenanigans of myself trying to think that I have some control. So Thank you very much. This has been a blessing.
Yeah, I want to thank you and thank everyone who joined us. We hope that this has been helpful for you to cultivate your own calm and realize the gift of calm. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye.